Test. All right, 3, 2, 1. And welcome to the SpartanMag.com VCast. Jim Comparoni, Paul Konyndyk. Breslin Center, Michigan State, 10 wins in a row. They beat Penn State tonight, 90-85. Michigan State improves to 15-2. Penn State, a very pesky 12-6, 2-5. You know, Penn State just played Oregon on Sunday, number 15 ranked Oregon. They lost by a point in Happy Valley. Penn State came out, played hard. They present you with some matchup problems, multiple defenses, and although Michigan State scored 90 points, Izzo was angry for a man with a 10-game win streak because of what he's got coming up Sunday with the Illini coming to town. Illinois is playing really well, so Izzo was in no mood to pop any champagne after this one, Paul.
You don't really know what you're going to get with Illinois, but back to Penn State. I mean, they lost to Oregon. They were up late in that game, but they were playing without Ace Baldwin for the second straight game, and Ace Baldwin's one of the best players in the Big Ten. Yeah. Tonight he played all 40 minutes of that game, finished with 20 points, had 9 assists, and he had more turnovers than he normally has, but he was the reason in the second half why Penn State kept this game within a couple possessions, because he was able to get to the free throw line. I think he went 10 of 11 or 11 of 12 from the free throw line in the second half, but that was the difference. In the first half, Michigan State was the team that was going to the free throw line. In the second half, Ace Baldwin did what he does. He's crafty. He's like one of just a few players in the last 30 years to have like 1,300 points, 600 assists, and then an ungodly number of steals. I mean, he's like one of those kind of freakish, flukish type players that you run into that put up crazy numbers, and he's also a winner. He's not a guy that fakes it. So he wanted to play all 40 of those minutes, and in Michigan State, personally, I know Izzo's grouchy, but I think he needed a game like – I think Michigan State needed a game like this at home where – things didn't go right, where there was foul trouble. That's something that hasn't been an issue all season long. But Michigan State found a way to overcome some things, had some loose screws that happened in games and close games, and they got some stuff done in this game. And but when you play a team like Illinois, sometimes weird crap happens where you have all your point guards in trouble. Michigan State had all 3 of their point guards tonight with 4 fouls. That might happen at some point this season. Probably not, but this is one of those games where Michigan State couldn't just coast in the second half and rely on its depth to put a team away like they've been able to do in other Big Ten games out here. So it was good for them to see that type of team, and also a Penn State team that's more multiple than other teams. You've got guys that can fit different, fill different roles. They can move around. They can get more exploitable matchups, and I felt like Michigan State's got more options at the 4 this year. But they don't have like a utility guy like they had with Malik Hall last year that could fit whatever option Penn State was throwing at him. So this was a tough team that Michigan State played, in kind of a weirdo type. Like if you played a super mid-major in the NCAA tournament, that's the type of team that Penn State's going to get you ready for.
That's right. I agree with that. Hey, give us a thumbs up here. Like the channel. We'd appreciate that. Subscribe to the channel. Go to SpartanMag.com for continued coverage and analysis of Michigan State basketball and Michigan State's portal additions for Michigan State football and other things going on. You know, we're usually at courtside for this, but they're tearing it down because the big gymnastics meet is going to be here Friday. Michigan State. They're expecting 10,000 plus here on Friday. I'm planning to be here. I'll be checking that out. Big hockey weekend. SpartanMag.com. All the coverage for that. Frankie Fiddler, Paul, finally he struggled this year, transferred in from Omaha, began the season as a starter. He's basically the 10th man now, playing about down to like 13, 14 minutes a game. Tonight they needed him for about 18 or 19 minutes. He became that conduit, that 4-man. He started playing some power forward 2 or 3 games ago, something we noted with our in-game coverage. I'm not sure if that went unnoticed elsewhere. Whenever I ask Izzo about that, he always downplays it because he's worried about the dirtbags out there that start talking bad about, you're playing the 4. Why are you going there? You're going to play the 4. You're a guard. So he always downplays that because they've used Konyndyk at the 4 a lot this year, and Izzo doesn't like to talk about that much. But Frankie Fiddler, the head of the 4 for a couple of games. I thought that was interesting. And it worked out well tonight. Where they needed him was in that zone offense. Penn State did a good job, multiple defense, keeping Michigan State off balance. You bring it up, sometimes against full court pressure. Is it man? Is it zone? It's zone. Okay, the shot clock's already down to 15. And Michigan State's not a good three-point shooting team. They're not a team that's going to going to bomb you out of zone defense. So the way Michigan State's been doing it over the years is feeding the high post area, that free throw line area, throwing it in there to Malik Carr, the foul line, or Kenny Goings, or Joey Hauser, and that's the way that they operate. And like you said, they don't really have that type of power forward in this team. Jackson Kohler maybe can be that guy offensively, but he's having trouble the other end on defense, staying in front of the guys that were driving him as a mismatched power forward. Booker scored a couple of baskets, a couple of field goals, flash into the high post, 12-footer, catches it with the shooting mentality, gave him a couple of valuable shots there, and a big three-point play with about 7 minutes to go. But he had problems elsewhere, defense, rebounding, all that. So put Fiddler in there, tried it a couple times first half, was okay. Came down the stretch with Fiddler and did a good job in the offensive glass, hit a three-pointer in the early going, had a steal, had a couple nice other plays. Fiddler emerging as someone in a zone offense to give something that they needed, something that he didn't practice doing. I talked to him after the game. A lot of players said we didn't really think they were going to play a lot of zone. They presented them with zone. Kohler tried to play that position. Booker tried. And Fiddler said, I kind of can pick up on what of course he knows the playbook. He knows what that role is supposed to be, what you're supposed to play in that. Had never practiced it with this team. He said he'd done it zone offense for Omaha and other stops. Did it tonight. And I don't know if they win this game without Fiddler doing those things, Paul.
No, it wasn't just him against the zone. It's just everything that he did. It was like
stability.
I mean, he was good against the zone, but we've seen a handful of hustle plays. Whether he's going to poke the ball loose, or he might get a shot for a teammate, or he might get a tough rebound. But tonight was a sustained. Like every minute he played, he made a physical play against a team that that Michigan State needed a physical plays against. A lot of offensive rebounds for him, a lot of putbacks, and he was just playing ball. That's what he was doing. He's playing ball, and like you mentioned at Omaha, he's really comfortable playing that four. But he was just going after it, and like he was the guy that Tom Izzo has been pushing for. I remember back when Bryn Forbes was here, his first year coming from Cleveland State. It took an awfully long time, and it was well after this point of the season where Bryn Forbes finally figured it out, and he went from being like a part-time starter early in the season. Then he was like buried on the bench because he couldn't do like the physical things, wasn't given maximum effort, those type of things that needed to be reprogrammed. And by the end of that season, once Michigan State started making their run in the postseason, Bryn Forbes started actually looking like he's trying on defense, become somewhat functional, and they're able to use his skill set. Frankie Fiddler's been trying, but it's been an adjustment. This is a lot more physical. A lot of times he lived at the foul line at Omaha. A lot of the times that he's going to the rack, he's getting killed, with lower body. But he's not getting fouls called, the same number of calls, and that he was last year. And so I think it's been a steady adjustment. I thought last game against Northwestern he did some good things. He had a couple loud plays, enough to give him confidence. But in this game, I think he really did the hustle things that he needs to do, and was that guy. Because this was a game where Michigan State's guards and wings needed to rebound. Jaden Akins got some tough rebounds. A lot of other guys got tough contested rebounds. There's a lot of those in this game. But Frankie Fiddler had a sustained number of hustle plays, and he was rewarded. And this was kind of the game where the basketball god said, okay, you put in this work. You've taken yourself outside this comfort zone and forced yourself to become a player that you're not used to becoming, and we're going to reward you for that. And Michigan State was a beneficiary of those rewards.
He was 8 of 13 from the floor, 8 field goals, the most he's had all year, season high, 18 points. His season high for field goals in a game was 5 against North Carolina. He had no other game besides those two when he had more than 3.
And most of those are drive to fouls.
He's the third leading scorer on the team, but a lot of that is free throw shooting. In terms of making field goals, they've been preciously few for him all season. 17% from three-point range. This guy, he's a career 37, 38% three-point shooter at Omaha. I realize defenses are different and so forth here, but he's better than a 17% three-point shooter. Anyone that can shoot in the 90s at the free throw line can shoot better than 17% from 3. They know he's better than that, but his role was decreasing, and he was upset with himself and had to battle through some things against this zone defense. He came to the forefront with some important contributions. Now moving forward, I mean, if they can get him to just be a 35% three-point shooter off the bench just as a role player, that would be a big boost. Because today, Akins hit a couple of threes. Holloman's going to be streaky. It's a team that everyone knows has not shot the three-pointer well all year. They showed some signs of life in December, but now it's kind of flattening out again. Now they're playing some teams that are making Michigan State prove they can shoot from the outside, which they are unable to do pretty much the last 3 games. You have to win somewhere else, which Michigan State was able to do. They scored 90 points, but they sure had a lot of speed bumps.
Yeah, the thing about the 3-point shooting, I get what you're saying, but this is a team. I felt like there was times where guys that made threes that had to make threes. Akins, when he hit a couple really big threes that were in response to runs. So. I'm thinking some of that stuff is good. A lot of the threes that went up, they should have gone down or were close to it. But then there's some against, Penn State has some length too. There are a lot of 6'5", 6'6" guys, and I felt like some shots were rushed. But yeah, it would be nice if Frankie Fiddler contributed threes. I think the beauty of this game tonight was that he didn't have to be that guy that we've been talking about. What can he be? He was, did whatever it took. And I think some of what he did tonight is going to be able to be replicated against teams that aren't playing zone defense, because part of what the issue was, in my opinion, is confidence, and he feels really good about himself right now. And I think this game was coming because of some of the good things that happened against Northwestern, and I think you're going to see more of that moving forward.
Paul, did you know that prior to the pandemic,
I did.
Michiganders were taking back their bottles and cans at a rate close to 90%. That has fallen to 75%. That's more than $100 million of unclaimed money and tons of materials that needlessly end up in landfills. Shan Recycling has been a big supporter of Michigan State athletics over the years, and they are reminding us that one of the beauties of our deposit system is that it creates the cleanest recycling material for the beverage industry to make new cans and bottles. When Michigan's rate of return drops, it hurts the environment. It hurts all of us. Help the environment. Help yourself. Help the state. Take those bottles and cans back. They're your lakes, your roads, your beaches, and it's your dime. So take them back. It's worth your time, and everyone will benefit. Take them back. A message from Shan, a great Michigan company dedicated to recycling. Take them back. All right, so Michigan State moves on Sunday. They play the Illini coming to town. Illinois is ranked number 19, but they're better than that. And they've
depends what Illinois you get. It really depends.
They lost without Yakashunas. They lost to USC. He missed a couple of games with a forearm injury. Came back strong against Indiana. That's in sleepwalk mode right now. But Illinois is interesting. Izzo was very grouchy in the postgame. You probably saw the video here on our YouTube channel. And Izzo goes into that mode when he thinks his team needs to be slapped and awakened a little bit when he's got a tough game. A tough opponent coming to town. Michigan State's won 10 straight. So Izzo's going a little martial law right now. And I think a lot of that is on point, because I do think Illinois is that good on a given day. And Illinois is going to be looking for a red letter victory. And they are very good on defense, and they go to the boards hard. When the guard who transferred from Arizona, Boswell, when he shoots, the other 4 go to the boards. They are legit 4 to the boards on offense, which Michigan State has done in the past. They've gotten away from that because of transition defense. Illinois, I think, is better than that ranking, and that's going to be a good one at noon on Sunday. And it's interesting that Illinois, all 5 starters are new players. Got a freshman and transfers and first-year players. It's a total reshuffle, kind of like what Michigan's done, and they're having success with it. And their ceiling of potential is really high. And now Michigan State's been a good defensive team, not tonight against Penn State, but defense is going to have to come back strong against Illinois, because Illinois has the best defense in the Big Ten and a very good rebounding team.
I'm going to say this about Illinois because it's not interesting, because they do it every year. They reshuffle, they kick guys out of the program, they bring a bunch of guys in there. What I find is interesting is Illinois' current coach is like Bob Huggins, in that he can impose his will on a roster full of guys that probably wouldn't fit at a lot of other schools. And I'm not going to go through the names of the guys that they have in their roster that I think are would be like square pegs or at Michigan State. But there are a lot of guys on that roster that have personalities that would not work well in a lot of programs that I respect. But Illinois has been able to bring in new players. He's been able to impose his will on them. I think sometimes that the character of that team, like when there's some bad times, it kind of goes haywire a little bit, and we see that once in a while with some inexplicable losses, some really kind of weird type of situations. But when Illinois is right, they are very right. And, I think Michigan State, the number one thing in this game is going to have to be more so than any other game this year, is rebounding. They're going to have to cut guys out, but it's going to have to be bigs cutting guys out, guards coming in for boards, and that means that Jackson Kohler, I don't know. He's not a guy that plays a ton of minutes, but when he is out on the floor, Michigan State's a different type of rebounding team. Now, if you put him out there with another big, then sometimes you get in some issues with with some perimeter stuff. I think Jackson Kohler did a great job tonight. Early on, Zach Hicks, who is one of the best shooters I've ever seen in the Big Ten, when his team is down and he doesn't have to think about anything but shooting the ball. He's got such a quick release. He did it to Michigan State last year at Penn State. He's a really good face-up shooter. He's got a lightning quick release for Penn State, and he was dynamite down the stretch. Kept them like close within 5 or 6 points. But yeah, Illinois is going to be highly motivated for this game. But there's a lot of guys on Michigan State's team that are playing well. But there's some guys that really have to pick it up in terms of effort and energy in every play. I don't know if you can trust a guy like Xavier Booker in a game like this unless you know that he's going to bring the type of energy that he showed against North Carolina, the type of energy he showed for a brief glimpse on that three-point play tonight. He can't be the guy that watches an easy opportunity to clear the defensive glass, bounce once on the baseline, and that happened more than once tonight, and have a Penn State guy come and scoop it up. You cannot do that kind of stuff against Illinois. And then there's some other guys that need to play better. Jeremy Fears, I was concerned coming into this game because he's going up against Ace Baldwin, who's one of the best, all-around point guards in the Big Ten in the country, that Jeremy Fears takes matchups personally. And I feel like he's got – what makes him great is also a potential weakness where he can let himself get sidetracked within games by the moment, whether that's trash talking, whether that's like physicality. Jeremy Fears is going to have the same type of thing when he plays against Illinois because that's his home state Big Ten team. And so one of the reasons why Tom Izzo is making such a big deal out of, missed switches, those kind of things, or free throw cutouts, or letting Tom Izzo get technical fouls and not Jeremy Fears, is because Illinois is a team that Jeremy Fears could get sidetracked by. Illinois is a team that Xavier Booker has to be the physical version of himself against. Otherwise, Michigan State's going to be diminishing returns when he's in the game. It's going to be, can we survive with Xavier Booker in the game? Not can we do some things? And so Tom Izzo needs his guys to tighten the screws. But some of those young players that are starting to feel really good about themselves, Booker should feel good about that three-point play. There's a big moment in the game. But he should also look at the other areas where he could have gotten better and where he could add more rebounds, and that he needs to get better at that type of stuff, and that he needs to be a better rim protector. Some of that's defensive awareness, where there's a few times tonight where he was a tick late on some of those drives where I felt like, he could have been a better, off-ball defender.
Yeah, the things that provide your team with extra possessions, he doesn't provide that, whether it be rebounding or defense. Once in a while, some good blocked shots. Yeah. You'll see the things flash, and that three-point play he had tonight was big. As a 3 or 4 point game that extended it to 6 or 7, gave them a nice push there with about 6 or 7 minutes to go. So Michigan State tonight against Penn State allows Penn State to shoot 65% in the second half. Izzo is angry about that. He's angry about 3 straight games in which Michigan State has not played well in the second half, giving up 40-plus points in 3 straight second halves of games. He says they've talked about it. He's tried to instill. He's tried to emphasize it, and it's not worked. So he says, I'm going to find a different way to make sure it works. Izzo's very driven right now, partly because of what's coming up on Sunday. And it's going to be interesting to see what Michigan State, how they respond against this very good Illinois team. Your thoughts on Michigan State giving up 65% in the second half?
Well, some of it is like the foul trouble to every single guard that they had. Penn State's going to drive you, and you don't. Some of it's that. Some of the stuff was just like Penn State does execute some really good stuff, and they have a lot of shooters like that. I was just saying that Zach Hicks, like when he makes some plays. It's not something that they can. That they can sustain. They've got to get better than that. But when you have, 3 of your better defenders, and I thought there was times tonight when Jace Richardson played really, really good defense, and I thought there were times tonight where Jeremy Fears played good defense. But when you have guys, when you have your best defensive guards in foul trouble, that's not good. But I also think too that Penn State's a team that's got a lot of. Michigan State can't really bully their guys. It's a team that they've got a lot of wings and guards, and they're very athletic in that 6'5" to 6'8" range. And it was a different type of animal for Michigan State. Do they need to be better on defense? Oh, for sure. I don't know what's going to happen moving forward, but I think some of the stuff is, some of the stuff is rebounding. When you get an opportunity to clear offensive or defensive glass, you got to do it. And because you look at a team like a Penn State, and a lot of times that they had those really good, easy, the inside-out 3-point shots. I swear every time they got an offensive board and the ball went out, those shots were in, and they're a team that can shoot like that. I think. Kudos to Michigan State in some respect for not losing this game tonight, because they really fought and they really scrapped. And I think Michigan State showed a lot of heart tonight, because there were junctures in this game where it looked like it was going to swing, and Penn State was playing better than Michigan State. And they found a way.
Penn State shot 41% from three-point range. Michigan State won the game because they got 68 shots up, and Penn State only got 53 shots up. Why does that happen? Michigan State had 4 fewer turnovers and a +4 in rebounding. Not a lot, but just enough. The free throw shooting was about equal.
It wasn't in the first half. When Michigan State built that lead in the first half, I think it was Michigan State. I mean, that's one of the things that Mike Rhodes complained about, and I believe, they listened to him. Because I do feel like, I know Michigan State fans are going to say that it was really lopsided favoring Penn State in the second half. I felt like Michigan State got away with a lot in that first half. I felt that there was a lot of Wisconsin-type fouling, where guards were hitting other players with their legs, and they weren't getting called. And then it felt like every single time that happened in the second half that it was called. But I feel like Mike Rhodes, he was like, hey, they're playing physical with Ace Baldwin. I think he pointed that out, and the game changed, but Michigan State didn't adapt to that. They were ahead of Penn State because they got to the foul line, and that's critical for Michigan State. They score a lot of points in transition, but Michigan State scores about 25%, fluctuates between 25 and 30% of their offense is coming at the free throw line. Mm-hmm. That's something we're not used to. It's usually been between 17 and 20, but Michigan State has to get to the free throw line. They didn't in the second half of this game, but it's going to be a really interesting game.
Now, the offensive rebounds were big for Michigan State tonight. 15 offensive rebounds on 36 missed shots. You're creeping up into the 40s. Penn State 25 missed shots, only 8 offensive rebounds. So although rebounds were close, 36-32, where you really look at the rebounding numbers is offensive rebounding percentage. Michigan State had a big advantage there. That's why they got more shots up. That's why they won the game, was off the rebounding, and Fiddler had 2 or 3 huge ones in that category.
So I think the difference between this game and like the last year's games with Michigan State and Penn State, they're big. That dude from Northern Illinois, that guy's athletic as heck. He struggled against Illinois. I watched that game, but he was right there and he was in position to make plays. He just didn't finish it. So I think Michigan State has got an advantage at center because they've got more bodies. But I think one of the things that Illinois did, or Penn State did a really good job of, is manipulating those like kind of swing positions and getting points off of them, whether that's Hicks, whether that's undersized guys.
And they also had DeMarco Dunn, a guy who's averaging 5 points a game, 15 minutes a game, comes out, makes 4 out of 5 3-pointers in the first 30 minutes of the game, ends up scoring, 18 or so, ends up 4 of 7 from 3, but he was 4 out of 5 from 3, having one of those out-of-body experience type of games.
I wonder if he had a big game against Michigan State last year. He was from North Carolina. I should have gone back and I looked at the box score, but some guys, he played Michigan State at North Carolina. If he came off the bench or whatever and had some big plays in that game, or he might have been confident, But yeah, I mean, Michigan State held Puff Johnson down, but they've got a lot of weapons. Penn State has a lot of weapons, and when they have all of their players and they're motivated, it's a big deal. Penn State came in here, and this was a game that could switch their season around. I'm listening to the pregame show on the way in. I was reminded that Michigan State at this same point last year was 9-7. 1-4 in the Big Ten. They end up becoming a fairly formidable team in the Big Ten. At the end compared to where they started. I know people were like, they only made it past through the first round of the NCAA tournament. I get that.
Is that all?
But, yeah, that's Michigan State.
I think Michigan State's one of 9 teams in the country that have gone to the second round of the NCAA tournament the last 2 years.
But frankly,
one of 9 teams in the country.
But frankly, when you look at teams like a Penn State, there's a lot of people out there on our message boards, or Michigan State fans in general, who are like I was when I was, like when Michigan State would win on the road with Mateen Cleaves there when Clem Haskins was there, and I'd be like, oh, man, they just barely won on the road. That's a bad game. No, it's not always a bad game. These teams are well coached. Rhodes is a heck of a coach. He does a good job of motivating, and his guys bought in, and they're all in, and they're going to beat some teams this year. I'm not saying they're going to make the NCAA tournament like Michigan State did, but that's a team that was, what are they, 11-5 right now?
12-6.
12-6. So they're ahead of where Michigan State was last year by a wide margin. And like it or not, if you're Michigan State and your players here, you started the season as the hunted or the hunter. Now you're the hunted. Now you're the team that everyone could make, their tournament resume look good at. And Illinois, like you said earlier, going back to Illinois, they're going to come in here. You want to do a number on Michigan State so they can show that, hey, we're the best team in the Big Ten. Those losses that we had in Big Ten play are fluky.
All right, so Penn State a few times drove maybe 3 or 4 times in this game, maybe 5 times. They're calling those fouls on the drive, which seemed kind of strange, and they did well at the free throw line, 19 out of 25, Ace Baldwin 11 out of 12. I kind of thought that wasn't real consistent with the way fouls have been called this season in terms of like playing defense on the drive. There was the one block shot when they called Jace Richardson when it looked like it was all ball. I'm not one to criticize officiating, but I think that some of those calls benefited Penn State hanging in the game in the second half.
I agree, and all the Penn State coaches over the last 20 years will say, well, it's about beep time because, we've heard every Penn State coach in a press conference after these games, and Michigan State gets all the calls, we don't get any of them. I think one of the things that you have to think about is I think that, like I said, Mike Rhodes is a good coach. I think that one of the things that he drew attention to is that Michigan State's guards are physical with their lower bodies. I don't know, and I really think that that's what they were keying in on. And the other thing is that Jace Richardson play. I agree with you. That shouldn't have been a foul. But human nature being what it is, I think officials are habituated. Anytime you see an arm motion swinging down, it's going to, it's like a lot of times it gets called before the contact is there just because it looks like a foul. When you swing down, when you club down, it's going to be called a foul.
It was more one of these, wasn't it? Anyway, he called something that didn't exist.
Right.
He called something he didn't.
But that's going to happen. And I also wonder too. Northwestern's coach Chris Collins after last game, he made a big deal about how Michigan State is really good at selling calls. So I wonder too, like when a head coach from Northwestern, he's very complimentary of Michigan State, and Chris Collins wasn't being a jerk about it, but he was saying, hey, Fears does a great job selling calls. The Michigan State does a great job getting to the free throw line. All that stuff gets out there. I don't know, but Michigan State had the advantage in the first half. Penn State had a heavy advantage in the second half, and both of these teams are ball clubs that do a good job getting to the free throw line. So I don't know, what that says. I would expect Michigan State to be the team at home to be going to the free throw line. That said, Penn State did not wilt. They kept on grinding and fighting, and I think a little bit what Michigan State did in the second half was some of the times they executed offense. They were off by a little bit on a pass, or they tried to do a little bit too much, and instead of like being aggressive, taking the ball right to the rack. Some of the passes that they tried to make weren't there, and I think Penn State, it was more like spread them out, drive, and they weren't looking to kick.
And they found matchups, favorable drive matchups. Now. Izzo was irate with Jeremy Fears with that unsportsmanlike technical foul in the first half. Simone Zapala was going up for a drive, and I think it was Baldwin. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Dunn. I got it in the notes somewhere. Anyway, gave Zapala a pretty good shove after the whistle, and
almost a horse collar.
Was it? And then Fears. You probably saw the game. Fears comes in and got in the guy's grill and gave him the what for and that type of thing. And they reviewed it, looking to see if the contact was bad. Instead, they reviewed it and gave Fears an unsportsmanlike conduct technical foul. Izzo really gave it to Fears on the bench more than I've seen anyone take it all year. And Fears was going back at him, and Izzo was going back at him even harder. And then Izzo sat down, got back up, and gave it even harder. Those of you that sat in the first 5 rows behind the bench know what I'm talking about. And then they shook hands. Everything was cool after that. Izzo said after the game he was very upset. He says, I'm the one that gets technical fouls, and I've been telling my players the way officials are giving technical fouls for anyone that says anything to officials. I've been warning my players, and it happened anyway. So he got it. I don't know. So I'm not completely clear. I don't know if he got an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty because of what he did with the Penn State player, or was he yapping at an official about it? Izzo made it sound like he was yapping at the official. Did you? Am I wrong about anything?
Here's what's really going.
I don't really know.
Here's what's really going on, in my opinion. And I've watched Jeremy Fears for a long time, and I remember some of the times where I've down at Spiece or some of those tournaments, and I've never seen a guy talk more crap than Jeremy Fears.
And that's what Izzo's been warning him about, right?
Right. And then the other day, against the Washington game, there's some stuff that was written, and they lionized Jeremy Fears by getting in Zoom Diallo's head, or being like, there's some stuff where Jeremy Fears was like sticking up for his teammates. Or there's a lot of chirping against Washington, right? And Zoom Diallo was trying to play Fears physically. Fears, felt like he got into his head. But there's an issue with Jeremy Fears, and I mentioned this earlier in the VCast, that he tends to get sidetracked and get distracted by mano-a-mano type of things. He's the alpha on his team. He sees himself as the head of the snake, and he wants to, to be that guy. But he talks a lot. And Izzo wasn't just getting on Jeremy Fears. Izzo was ripping Thomas Kelly, an assistant coach, quite a bit as well, because this isn't a one-off. This is something that Izzo's been seeing ever since he started watching Jeremy Fears play when he was a ninth grader. There's a lot of trash talking. He's the only guy I've ever seen at the high school level talk trash while he's shooting free throws. And I've seen him get teed up for that. So
Izzo's been warning him.
So it's not, like people are like, hey, what's the big deal? He's just sticking up for a teammate. Well, Izzo doesn't want his leader, the guy that his team rides or dies with, taking himself out of the game by a poor decision, or
Izzo doesn't like yapping to begin with. Cleaves a little bit, Draymond a little bit. He says he doesn't want to totally castrate everybody, but you better not get it technical.
But the thing is Fears does plenty of yapping, does plenty of chirping with players away from the officials. But as soon as you involve an official in that, or as soon as you kind of like let that take over and be a distraction, or you make a mistake with something, then you're going to be in trouble. And you do not want to do that. You do not want to be a yapper in a game with a dude like Ace Baldwin.
And they collected a foul, and then 10 minutes ago in the game, he's got 4 fouls or whatever it was, and you lost his defense for important stretches in the second half.
Right, and they, he could have been out there. He's physical enough where he could get out there and switch and get up and their 3-point shooter, their 6'8" guy.
Then Holloman has 4 fouls. Then Richardson has 4 fouls. Now everybody's being careful,
yeah,
and
it's
the
not
whole
just
defense goes down.
And it's not just those guys. Going back, and I don't want to rip Booker again, or other guys, rim protectors. If you fail in your job to rotate on time and be a rim protector, then who's going to get the foul? If you're not in position, getting back or whatever, your guards pick up fouls. But it's about playing solid team basketball. But for Jeremy Fears, that which makes him great. He's a charismatic dude, and I think he's an amazing point guard. He's really coming into his own, but he has to be able to handle his emotions. He can't make those kind of coaches would call him selfish, because you're putting the focus on you instead of your team. But those things have legs. You've seen it as a baseball coach. I've seen it watching my daughter play softball for years and years and years. If you've got someone that throws a bat or yaps at an official, the entire team suffers. And I'm not saying that's necessarily the case in this game, but you do not want to put yourself in that position. Jeremy Fears needs to learn self-control, and it's an ongoing point of emphasis with him, and it's one of the reasons why Izzo was hot about it, and he shut it down in the post-game press conference, because he didn't want anyone writing that narrative of him sticking out for his teammates. He doesn't want that, because he knows what Fears has for demons, and he wants to get rid of them, just like he wants to make Frankie Fiddler more physical, and all the other guys that have flaws. And
rim protection was a problem tonight, partly because Michigan State had to go small because they were getting driven. So if you have Fiddler at the 4, you're not going to have as much rim protection. Secondly, as far as Fears goes, Michigan State had a 10-point lead at halftime, and Fears, they're up by 11 or so. Penn State came back, cut it to like 4, and Michigan State kind of controlled the last couple minutes of the first half. Fears had a lot to do with that, with drive, draw, dish. Yeah. At one time penetrating, it was morphed into more of a 2-3 zone with 2 guards up top. Got in there and dumped it off to Kohler, made some plays. So Fears had some real good moments in the first half, and they lost that, but that foul came back to hurt them. Real quickly as we close, Michigan State shot 26% from 3-point range. Can Michigan State win on Sunday? I got a Jack Ebling question for you.
Every single day.
Can Michigan State win on Sunday if they shoot 26% from 3?
They're not going to shoot.
I don't know.
I think they can. And I'll tell you why, because I think that one of the reasons why Jeremy Fears is so critical to this game, and one of the reasons why those point guards are so critical to this game, is because of the way that Illinois sometimes covers. The teams that have given them the hardest, like you look at USC, that's an oddball, weirdo team.
Hit them with medium range shots all day.
Medium range and changing speeds with the dribble. That point guard got to the point guard isn't great, but he does change speeds with the dribble. He's strong, and he finished at the rim. The weakness for Illinois, and it has been for a while, is if they're not like if they hit all their threes and they're rebounding at a high level, it doesn't matter if they have drop coverage. But for Michigan State here, I do think the penetration piece is gonna be there, and you need guys like Fears, you need guys like Holloman and Jace Richardson to play that facilitator role, because there are going to be elbow jumpers available.
On a neutral court, I would pick Illinois. For Michigan State to win on Sunday, they're going to have to shoot better than 26% from three, I think. As far as Illinois goes, Yakashonis, they say he's going to be a top 10 pick in the first round, 6'6", and they've got length across the board. We'll talk about more of this as we go forward. But Ivisic, 37% three-point shooter is a 5-man, and he camps out from three-point range, and when the shot goes up, he's going to the rim hard. And Yakashonis, freshman from Lithuania, he goes to the rim hard. They go to the offensive glass hard, even though these are first-year Big Ten players.
And the freshman
Ivisic is from Croatia, and Yakashonis from Lithuania.
Guys from Lithuania and Croatia, they could be 27-year-old freshmen. I mean, I know they're not, but those guys are like
18.
Those guys are they're experienced beyond and skilled
Ivisic
beyond.
is a pro. He's NCAA categorized him as a sophomore because he played for like Barcelona's B team or something and was a pro, and NCAA didn't have a rule because all of a sudden it used to be if you received any money in the European leagues you were ineligible for college basketball. Now all of a sudden you're eligible, and they're like, well, but you're a sophomore. I mean, brand new rules, making them up as they go along. Good player, but the other guys like Humrickhouse is 6'9". Trey White, transfer from Louisville, 6'7", strong drive guy, leaper guy. Will Riley's a 6'8" freshman. So you're talking about 6'8", 6'7". Yakashonis is 6'6". Ivisic is a 7-footer. Humrickhouse is 6'9". Morez Johnson comes off the bench, freshman, 14 minutes a game, 6 foot. He only plays 14 minutes a game, averages 6 rebounds from Thornton Township, Illinois. 6'7", 6'8", size. Against Michigan State, you could put Akins on one, but then you kind of run out of size in the backcourt. That's a problem, Paul.
It is. And Michigan State's going to have to run effectively. The transition is going to have to be there. They're going to have to have team rebounding. I do think it's helpful that Kohler has played as much on the perimeter as he has. The amount of time that he spent at the 4 this year is beneficial. I think
today it wasn't so great.
It wasn't, but the matchups are really tough. I mean, you're going to get like that. Zach Hicks it's tough, and you're switching a lot. It's not just that guy. It's he might have Ace Baldwin. He might have this guy. So you can say, it's not just like going up against someone from Minnesota where you're going up against a 4-man. A lot of times against this Penn State team, and why I think they're like a mid-major on steroids, is because it is a legit 4-guard lineup, but these are 4 guards that are 6'5" or bigger, and they've got them coming off the bench, and they've got some athletic bigs. They slip, and they do a lot of different things. So, yeah, you can say he struggled on the perimeter, but I would too if I was him, or anybody would, if they're going up against a 6'5" guy that's really kind of like a shooting guard.
So Michigan State is still trying to figure some things out. Zapawa only played 12 minutes a game. So Michigan State, when they play one of these type of Penn State teams, when they play a Penn State team like this, in the future, I think they're going to try to work to get Cohen Carr to have that capability to be that flash to the low post, to the high post conduit for the zone offense. If they see that again, they got away with it with Fiddler tonight, but you would love for Carr to come along in that area because he gives you a little bit more on defense, theoretically. So
and rebounding. I mean, that's a guy that's going to be critical rebounding. I think Carson Cooper. We haven't talked about him.
He played more minutes today than the other.
But I think
centers.
he did some really good things.
Because he's mobile on. He can move his feet on defense.
But he's a guy that's got to be huge against Illinois. So Michigan State's going to have to get their best from a lot of different areas. But the nice thing I think for Michigan State is Michigan State's defensive guards are better than they've been, and you don't have as many exploitable weaknesses. But they're going to have to execute at a high level, and they're going to play their tails off against Illinois and try to. At home, this reminds me of that a game a couple of years ago, or back when Cassius Winston, those guys were here. Purdue came in here, and I thought Purdue had a better team than Michigan State. I know Purdue had a better team than Michigan State at that point. Michigan State found a way to win by 7 to 10 points, and I felt like they were lucky doing it. They didn't win the return at Purdue. No one wins there, but at home, you should be able to steal some games like this, and they're going to need to be at their best, but. I do feel better about this team because there's more guys, more potential options than we've seen in the past when it was just Tyson Walker has to do his thing. And Jaden Akins tonight, People are going to keep on writing that story as Jaden Akins the go-to guy, but he drove to the basket hard a few times, made some good plays at the rim against physical defense.
There's a few times he hit the gas tonight and looked pretty good.
And he hit big shots tonight, and there were some times where he really turned it up on defense, and made some plays or some deflections. I thought Jaden Akins, we talk a lot about Fiddler, but I thought Jaden Akins had another really good game for Michigan State. And if there was someone that really needed a big shot, and it wasn't Fiddler with a putback, Jaden Akins was making the play. He
showed some determination at times, which is good for them.
And some emotion, man. Like last 3-point play he made, or that run out. I'm really enjoying Jaden Akins because he's a guy that I think is probably maybe too conscientious at times, where he's always not having fun because he's always thinking about this or that. These last few games, to see him release his emotion in a positive way. And, I know people are like, hey, when I'm talking about Jeremy Fears, they're like, yeah, you don't want no fun. You're not for fun in basketball. I am. Jaden Akins, to me, is having fun. He's playing it, and he's releasing his emotion in a positive way that isn't detrimental to the team. And I love watching him. I loved seeing the clips from Evanston, of him getting his 1,000th point, the joy that he had in the locker room, the joy his teammates had, and I enjoy watching him have some of that emotional release out here in the games like this, because he has a lot of fun winning games, and that's what matters to him, winning.
And he's going to guard Yakashonis probably, so that's going to be interesting to watch. Anything else, Paul? For Paul Konyndyk, my name is Jim Comparoni. Been watching the VCast from East Lansing with the Spartans, SpartanMag.com.